else. Let's start in. Oh, one other thing. This is not a free version. This is a paid for version, a business version. And Zoom apparently over this last weekend has made many updates to it, trying to keep it private and not let it get hacked like some of the complaints were going around just before, down at the end of last week. Okay, are there any announcements? Okay, I don't hear anybody saying anything. There are no presentations that I know of this week, so that's down. Public appearances, public comments. Jane, can you have one to read into the public comments?
Yes, but I also need you to take roll call of the commissioners, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay, we'll go back. Roll call. I'm here. Karen? You're here. Andy?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Great,
Paul?
thank you.
Paul is here. Okay. Let's see if I can make this. No, that's not going to help. It just makes it bigger. Stephen. Okay, I'm assuming you're here. I can see you.
I can see him muted.
Randall's here. Okay. Barbara?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, are there any other commissioners that I am missing?
This is Dave. I'm here.
Oh, David's there. Okay.
Did Barbara respond?
Yes, she did.
Can you see me?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not doing the visual. I'm only doing
Where's
audio.
my- Oh,
so that's 1, 2, 3,
How about
4.
Tom Hauser? Is Tom Hauser there?
Is not yet.
You do that.
And who is the last one that we don't have?
Tom Hauser?
Yeah, he's not on yet.
Okay.
And Deborah
is
Doyle.
Deborah Doyle.
Deborah
that's
Doyle.
the other one. She's not on yet either. Okay.
Okay.
But we do have a quorum, so we will move forward. All righty.
So can I make one comment?
Yes.
Vicki, I know you muted everybody, but I think we can mute ourselves if everybody mute themselves so we can unmute when we want to talk.
That's fine. Go on ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think Vicki's primarily muting the ones that are beyond us. Okay. Yeah, presentation, public appearance, public comments. There was one that was emailed in. Jane, can you read that, please?
Yes. I just wanted to make a note to Vicki there. Jamie and Jaylene are trying to connect and they're having difficulty. If you could help them. They have emailed us through Outlook.
I'm admitting people. Jane?
Yeah.
I'm admitting people as they dial in.
Okay. I should read, hold on. I'm going to read this and try to respond to emails.
Would you like me to read it in, Jane? Would that make it easier?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's from Wayne Diggs here in Cloverdale. And he says, use of the library is an integral part of many people's lives. Books can be reserved online. They are then stocked on a shelf in a separate area. The decision to not allow patrons to come in and get them or have curbside delivery is the wrong capitalized decision. Thousands of people are working and the risk of virus contact has been eliminated. There should be some type of solution that would allow library patrons to get these books. Sadly, the library staff has made the easy solution the rule. No one has even given a thought to how this could be accomplished without risk of exposure. No one seems to be able to think out of the box. Having supported all of the library's past requests for additional funding, I am very disappointed. So, unfortunately, we cannot respond to public comments. Hopefully, if Wayne, if you're listening, and anybody else, I hope you'll learn something when we get down to the management reports and the status of what's happening. Okay.
Excuse me, this is Jane. Tom and Deborah are on the line, but they say they're muted. If they could be unmuted.
Could I get their phone numbers, please?
I don't have their phone numbers right here immediately.
This is a call-in meeting.
This is Tom Hauser. I just got something saying I'm unmuted.
Yeah.
And this is Deborah
All right.
Doyle. I got the same.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you, Vicki.
And those of you that are non-commissioners, please mute yourselves. Right-hand corner of the screen.
Sorry, that is true. I'm having Heidi go tomorrow morning and do the morning time stuff because I went over there this morning and this afternoon.
It'll probably take a while.
Until Bobby's feeling better.
Kind of breakfast time, dinner time. But Heidi, can
Please mute yourself.
I can flatten it in the afternoon. If you put some of that in a dish, so and like soften it.
Okay. Reports that I know of anyway. Okay, so we're down to 6.1, the management reports. Anne?
Okay, you have in your packet the usual management reports, director report, and OMC report. There's somewhat of that
It's not that I was horrible today, but I did something.
you also
I
included
did I eat chocolate.
Sorry, we cannot hear this.
I have an attitude problem.
We've got people talking who should not be talking, and the people who are presenting are not audible.
Anne, could you get closer to your mic somehow?
I'm close enough.
You're not.
Okay, you have, can you hear me now?
Barely.
Barely.
Back to normal,
Okay, I will try it this way.
because I want to know,
So
right,
we have the management reports in the packet. They are somewhat abbreviated. This month because
they're so
we
dumb.
got
In my opinion, they're smart people, but they are dumb people. And this, the way that they're interacting is dumb.
It's on there.
Graham Trenton?
Okay, so I have just unmuted everyone. And so those of you who are participants and not commissioners, please mute yourselves. Everyone, please mute yourself until it's your time to speak. All right, go ahead, commissioners. And Ann, this is really where you need to speak.
right here.
Yeah.
All right. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. So we have the management report in the packet. It is somewhat abbreviated because our focus for the second half of March has been on taking care of the staff and making sure that our operations are continuing even though our locations have been closed. On page 17, we've put together a summary of the online library, which is what our focus has been lately. We've greatly increased our digital offerings. We've made things more accessible by increasing the checkout limits. And you'll see there's been a tremendous response from the public. 155% increase in users of Hoopla, 44% increase in checkouts, 106% increase in users to Overdrive, 43% for Canopy, 370% increase for RB Digital magazines. Clearly, the public has embraced the online version since that's the only way they can access their library now, and they've taken to it. So we are giving them as much as they need. We're also responding. The public service managers have been handling all of the Ask Us questions that come in through the website, as well as all of the phone calls that are transported to one location. So they're getting about 50 to 60 patron interactions per day. And I really appreciate them doing that because it keeps that personal touch for our library patrons at this time when we can't be open physically. So all of the OM team members, the public service division managers, IT division manager, human resources, facilities, marketing, fund development, all of us have been working tremendously to keep everything going. And I want to give a shout out to all of my team. We have a dedicated small group of other essential staff who've been working along with us, and we're going to get through this. So that is my director's report.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Andy?
Hi, Ann. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes, thank you.
I had a couple of questions, and none of this is meant in any way as a critique of what's happened so far. I know that you and the team have been responding, very quickly to a changing situation. Here's the question that I wanted to ask you. At the moment, we know that the shelter-in-place order has been extended for at least a month, and it's possible that it could be extended longer than that. Hypothetically, if you knew that the shelter-in-place order was going to be extended for several months, what would you be doing differently than we're doing now?
Well, we would be looking for ways to expand our services, and that's something that we are working on. I think it's pretty clear that when we do reopen, whenever that is, it won't be a return to life as we knew it. Things are going to be different for quite some time. So if we are extending the shelter in place, we're going to get a lot more creative with the services that we offer and the programs. We can't do programs. We're looking at different ways to do more online streaming programs and get some connections with our patrons that way. If we are extended longer than May 3rd, we'll need to consider ways to deliver materials to our patrons. We've not been able to do that so far, and people have been very, very understanding about it, but I know it's difficult, and Mr. Diggs' comment is an example of that. So we are looking at a lot of different ways to be proactive in this. We don't want to just sit around and wait to see what happens. We want to be prepared to plan. And I don't have specifics that I can give you right now, but I can tell you that my team is really looking at all the different options and possibilities and trying to be prepared.
I have two follow-up questions, if I may, and then I'll yield. First question is, it's great to see the increased usage of our online resources, but I think we all know that there's a significant digital divide in Sonoma, with many people not having access to the internet or not having computers. I was on a call today with Senator Mike McGuire, and he was talking about what the schools are doing to try to increase distribution of Chromebooks and hotspots. What, if anything, is the library doing to try to provide these capabilities to those people in our community who can't access our electronic resources? And my second question, somewhat unrelated, great to hear what the management team has been doing. I'm wondering why the employee team has not been involved in providing any services up to date, and if there has been some discussion about utilizing employee capabilities as part of the greater outreach effort that you're contemplating. And that will be the end of my questions for the moment.
Okay. So with regard to the first question, for the digital divide, all of our Chromebooks and hotspots are currently checked out. So they are out there in the community and people are being able to use them. We've extended the due dates so they can keep using them and they won't become a brick. You know, usually when you reach your due date, it automatically shuts off, but Vicki took care of that. So that's what we have been able to do in terms of providing materials for students and schools. We don't have any more right now. We will get into some conversations with the school system and see if there are other ways we can help support them. And that's something that we are looking forward to doing in the next week or so. The second question about the employees, the management team has been primarily keeping things going because we are unrepresented employees. The arrangement that we have with our union is that the represented employees are sheltering in place as they were ordered to, and when they are sheltering in place, they cannot be doing library work.
Why is that? They can't work remotely?
They can, but we have to take care of making sure that's included in the agreement. When we negotiated with our union representatives, we had a list of essential employees that we wanted to be able to work, and they've reached that list. We're now going to be looking to expand the list and bring in more employees to do work for us. It's a matter of taking it step by step and making sure that the people who are working are getting the appropriate equipment. Right now, they can't come in to work physically here, so they have to have the right setup to work from home safely. And those are things that we're looking at providing. Suzanne, did you want to add to that?
Sure. So additionally, the shelter in place defined essential employees, and so we had established that list of essential employees that could work in the building, and now we've also established a list, we've actually established a telework procedure. So we have that list. We're expanding the employees and the services. So one, like to Ann's point, we are providing them with the equipment and the access to log in remotely, and then as we as the time goes on, and we will be able to provide them with the personal protective equipment to hopefully be able to come in as hopefully the shelter in place restrictions are hopefully lifted, then we can potentially allow them to come into branches when services are not still open to the public. But at this time, we're just.
Well, I didn't see the buttons before.
Sorry, is someone talking? Okay, so I just want to make sure that we can do things in phases, but yeah, we have to do this as a phased approach, and also within bound parameters with the agreement that we've provided with the union as well. So, but we are looking to what other library, we are working also within what other library systems are doing as well.
Okay.
This is Stephen. I would comment as well.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you. Yes, following up on what Commissioner Elkind has brought up too, and what Ms. Silva brought up, as far as trying to do this in phases, in order to get more of the current staff actually back working. So I am interested in receiving updates to the extent that they're available about how we can bring more of the staff back up to their original job functions. Speaking of that, though, I am also curious about how we're dealing with containing the virus if, as has been stated, there's going to be talk about opening up, dealing with like return of books or the hotspots, how we're going to be CDC compliant with receiving material back from our patrons, whether they be hotspots, whether they be books. I'm interested in how that's going to happen. Thanks.
Is there anybody else?
Yes, this is Paul. So I've had a number of questions from the community saying we understand why the library is closed, but some of the most disfranchised people in our community don't have high-speed internet. My kids are supposed to be online going to school. I depended on the library to go and get that internet, okay? And is anybody given any thought to having hotspots or an internet node outside the library so people could sit in their cars and access that if they have a library card? Because I have my own students.
One moment.
Yeah, I have my own students that are
Okay.
actually
having hotspots on internet node outside the library.
Oops, I got Siri going on here. Sorry about that. Yeah. Stupid Siri. But I think that would be a real important service to the community. And I have my own students at the Literacy Work Center at Santa Rosa JC. A lot of them are in the same boat. So I think that would be something that the union wouldn't have a problem with because it wouldn't really have staff. And, you know, technology, I'm sure Vicki, who is brilliant, could figure out a way to do it. And it would be a real good, it would be really good for the community if we could figure something like that out. Okay.
Well, first of all,
yeah.
First of all, this is Vicki, and we do have people in our parking lots all across the system, parking in the parking lots and using the Wi-Fi from outside the building. Already we have significant bleed out to the parking lots in most of the branches. One that's not good is the Windsor branch. There's like 2 parking places like right in front of the building, and that really has to do with the building construction. I've actually been contacted by a couple of Windsor patrons who are like mad because there are people that are taking up the parking spots all day long. But I can't, you know, there's nothing I can do about the construction of the building itself. And, you know, it's a lot of steel and brick and mortar, and so that's blocking the signal. We have significant, I think Reece can drive up the street and see the people sitting in the parking lot at the Cloverdale Library. This is a prime example. You know, if this goes on much longer, I will say this, that I think we need to be looking at some ways in which we could extend the Wi-Fi out further surrounding the building. That would include buying some equipment and putting up antennae to actually boost the signal. We certainly have plenty of signal coming into our building, but again, you know, this is not something you just pull a rabbit out of the hat and do. In 5 minutes, it takes significant planning.
Sure. Well, that's good to know. I didn't know that. Thank you, Vicki.
Right. Yeah, and I want to address the hotspots and the Chromebook situation. First of all, we only have 100 Chromebooks. We actually only have 100 Chromebooks, and within those Chrome kits, we actually have hotspots represented in them. And so what I want to say about that is that obtaining more hotspots is significantly difficult at this time because there's an embargo on the parts. They're made in China. Most of the parts for hotspots are made in China. And so there is this whole business, there's this whole business of obtaining them. The last time I checked, hotspots are back ordered till July, August timeframe. So I'd love for us to get a couple hundred more. And in fact, I had 100 on order when this all hit, and I was just told the other day that we can't get any more until July, late July, early August timeframe, because these parts and pieces are made in different parts of the world. They're made in China, they're made in Southeast Asia, and so that's another conundrum. I will say this, also I participated in a webinar today, and it was with the chairman of the FCC, and they're going to be opening up some more broadband spectrum, and we'll learn more about that the week of the 22nd. Any other questions about broadband or anything? I see Karen has her hand up. I'm going to unmute you, Karen. Do you want to?
Hi there. I actually, I want to corroborate what Vicki said about hotspots. Bad.
Somebody please mute their phone.
I think it's Lisa's iPad, I think it is. Lisa, mute your iPad. Thank
Karen,
you.
try again. Karen, please try again.
How's this?
Yes.
Okay, great. First, I want to corroborate what Vicki said, because I tried to get hotspots, and even through a third-party vendor, I couldn't get hotspots. It's like they weren't possible. I did have a question. I don't know where we are with the van that we were getting, the mobile vehicle, but I was wondering if there was any ideas about taking the van out to be a hotspot in parking lots, where people could drive up, because you don't want people congregating physically because of the social distancing thing. But I just wanted to ask that. And thanks for all you're doing to get technology to people.
Okay, I'm going to speak to the van piece. First of all, the van is still in production. In other words, the company is in Ohio and it's in production. We don't have any vision of rolling that out until late August, just because that's the build out. It's a custom build, and that's the build out time. And yes, it will have a Cradlepoint router on it, and it will be able to broadcast broadband from the van itself. So people will be able to, we'll have both a public and a private network, so that people will be able to drive up or walk up, and there will be devices on the van, so that if they don't have a device, they will be able to use a library provided device, just checking it out like they would check out a book. We probably will equip it with additional hotspots so that people can check out hotspots and when we can obtain them again. Because you know, that's really the issue, is being able to obtain them. A lot of the schools and so forth are running into the same sorts of issues. And it is enough to make you hold your head, trust me. I've been trying as hard as I can. I just, you know, I have that 100 Chromebook hotspot kits. I've got the Chromebooks ready to go. We've been using the balance of those for the census. So once I hear from Verizon about the hotspots, we'll put those together and get them out to the field again as well. And that will give us 200. But literally 98% adoption rate. When I look at the numbers every day, you know, those hotspots are checked out.
Okay, are there any others that have a comment or question? Okay, and I can't see everybody all at once, so just, okay, so any other comments, Anne, on your report?
No more comments.
Okay, good. Okay, so we're down to the commissioner reports now. And we'll start with the chair report. I just want to tell the staff and Vicki and Ann, et cetera, how proud I am of what you're doing. I mean, we walked into this as blind as everybody else and had no idea. I think if we'd had an emergency plan in place, it probably would not have applied in many cases to some of the issues we're dealing with. But I just think you're handling it very, very well. And I just want to thank you very much for all the work you're doing. Secondly, we will be having committee meetings this month. We're going to do them virtually. We need to have the finance committee meeting. We need to have a budget meeting, et cetera, because we can't just stop working now because this is going on. And with the technology that Vicki has managed to put in place, we can keep going without any problems, or maybe with minor problems. Okay, and finally, somebody commented about Cesar Chavez Day, and I put a little readout in the packet, but I thought I'd just make the comment that Cesar Chavez versus Columbus. Columbus was not the first European here in America, if anybody knows their history. And he was picked primarily because the man who was writing at the time, George Bancroft, wanted somebody who was solid and who, you know, appeared like he could be the start of America. And so he was chosen to give America something longer than the 44 years he was working with. And pardon? Oh, anyway, so Cesar Chavez, Columbus Day came along. It was going on for many years while I was growing up. But in 1992, people here, especially in California, began celebrating Indigenous Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. And Columbus Day now is recognized by the federal government, but not by California state government. Cesar Chavez, however, is recognized by both. So when it comes to holidays, we recognize Cesar Chavez, but we don't recognize Columbus because of the historical background and what is represented by his coming to America. So anyway, I just thought I'd give a little update on that. That was anybody listening beyond the people who read the packet who kind of understand what was going on. So other than that, we are down to other commission reports. Does anybody have anything that they want to highlight in their commission report?
This is Tom Hauser. I'm sorry. It's not the commission report. It's the committee report.
Okay. Yeah, we haven't gotten to the committees yet. Okay. So everybody else is pretty even. I mean, they don't have anything they need to highlight. Okay. So we'll move on to the committee reports. and start with the director's evaluation. We did not meet this month, again, due to the everything that was happening. We will get together sometime during this next month, finalize our report, and we will get that going. So next, committee reports, the Finance Committee. Randall.
Finance Committee did not meet due to the, well,
Can you speak up, Randall?
Okay, is this better? No.
Yeah, a little bit better.
All right. I want everyone to be worried that the sales tax is going to be very, very small in the next coming months. And we need to plan for that. And that's all my report.
Okay, thank you very much. And the advocacy report, Deborah?
Yeah, this is Deborah. The advocacy report can stand on its own. However, since our advocacy meeting, the virus has clearly had an impact on our own advocacy, but also library advocacy at the state and national levels. And so a number of people usually every year are scheduled to go to Washington to lobby on library legislative day, and that has been canceled, which then means that we at the local levels are really responsible for talking to our electeds, talking to our legislators to encourage their support of libraries, and we certainly have representatives who are very supportive, but people are going to be clamoring for things, and it just behooves us to make sure that our voice is heard as well. At the national level, libraries were included in the stimulus package, the recent stimulus package that passed on March 27th. The $2 trillion Coronavirus Aid Act includes $50 million for the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the IMLS in Washington, for digital inclusion projects, and there's also about $30 billion in relief for schools and colleges, and so it will probably include unspecified libraries that have to do with schools and colleges as well, but and also billions more for other nonprofit organizations. So the library community will have to try to take advantage as much as it can to those sorts of things. So when you're talking to your legislators, make sure that they are reminded what we're doing for the community, even as the libraries are closed. And that's my report.
Okay, thank you very much, Deborah. Any questions? Okay. Foundation Liaison report, Tom.
The report states itself. There's nothing to add.
All righty. Measure Y oversight, Randall.
I'm sorry, I totally forgot there was a meeting on the Tuesday right after the commission meeting. So Jane backed me up and did a very long, detailed report about what happened.
All righty.
I suspect the next Measure Y meeting will have a whole different set of topics.
All righty. Yeah, I think it will. Okay. Roseland Coalition Liaison, David.
Yes, neither library nor the Roseland Working Group have met. I would refer people to page 9 of the report in which Dave reports that his crew participated in the Roseland Library Project planning activity with consultants, community partners, and staff. That's all I've got. Karen, do you have anything else?
Unmute yourself, Karen.
Yes, you can.
All right. Well, there we go. All right. No, I have nothing to add.
Okay. Moving on, Standard Operating Procedures Committee. We didn't meet? Okay. I think that was a nod and that was right. Okay. Bylaws review.
This is Thomas Hauser. The committee, the report is in writing. It says we have a draft that we're recommending be approved. There has been a request that we allow you through the 15th to make comments upon it. As the written report says, the only changes are that we added the language that ANCAC provided for the leases and the appeals. And so if you have any comments or questions, we did this once before, but if you have anything else, get it to one of us by the 15th of this month, and we'll try to respond to you to see if we can explain anything that you have questions about. And then hopefully at next May meeting, we'll try to approve this.
Okay. Any comments or thoughts on that? Let's see, I saw Stephen's hand going up. Stephen, did you have a comment?
Yes, and also I'd like to remain unmuted. I've said a couple different texts about this, but as far as the lease language, Tom and the rest of the committee, how was the lease language? How did it come into existence?
Our counsel, ANCAC, drafted it, and she drafted, for both of those sections, she drafted very, very complex language that set out the entire procedure that would have to be undertaken. And the general comments from the committee were that we'd like the bylaws not to be so detailed, and she came up with language that was briefer, laying out basic premises of the leases and the appeals process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Andy, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you.
Wait a minute, you have to unmute yourself. Or was that a no? Okay. Okay.
Now, I wanted to, sorry, Reece, I could not unmute myself. I had to wait for the host.
Okay.
I just wanted, Tom, a quick question and then a really quick nitpicky comment. Sorry. The only sections that have changed since the last time we reviewed it are those two sections, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for all the work you did. Sorry to be a pain, but the sections that follow are misnumbered and that should be fixed. We have two section 12.
Okay, if you could send me an email about that, that would be great.
I will, yeah. Sorry, I know it's really nitpicky. Apologize.
Okay, anybody want to comment? Okay, I don't see anybody doing that. Thank you, Tom. And I know that you and the people on your committee have done a lot of work on this, and I appreciate it. Okay, so the last two, the ad hoc commissioners orientation and the ad hoc all day, no meetings, so there is no comments or anything. Okay, moving on, lab appointments, we have none, so we're down to the consent calendar. Anybody have any comments or changes to the minutes, etc.? Okay, and I don't see anybody saying anything, so I'm going to assume they're okay. Okay, so
this is Tom Hauser. I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Paul Heavenridge seconds.
Okay, so Tom Hauser moved and Paul Heavenridge seconded. So we need to call the roll on this. Jane?
Reece?
Yes?
Barbara was trying to make a comment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this mute thing is really frustrating because we can't mute and unmute ourselves. It's still up to, I guess Vicky's doing that. Anyway, since we haven't really ever practiced meetings on Zooms and I'm on Zoom, what I'm seeing is everybody's faces on their cameras. I am not able to see our agenda at the same time. And just how do we do that? I'm trying to look at my agenda on my library phone and it won't download. Is everybody else actually looking at the agenda on their Zoom screens?
You can.
Or are you looking at the pictures of all?
You can have that open in the background, but you switch back and forth.
Okay, I don't know how to do that. So anyway, I'll find out separately, I guess, some other time.
I'll give you a call, walk you through it. How's that?
Thank you.
Okay, where were we? Oh, so Barbara, other than that, you didn't have any comments about the minutes?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so this is the consent calendar. Do I ask for public comment on the consent calendar too? Okay, is there any public comment on this consent calendar? Don't hear anything popping up. Alrighty. So it's been moved and seconded. And so we need a roll call vote.
Are you interested in listening to the side letter agreement?
Not yet. When we get down to number 10, that's the one after this one. We will have the side letter agreement. Okay? This is just the minutes on the consent calendar that we're dealing with. Okay. So no public comment there. Now let's have the vote. Jane, will you call the roll call for the vote, or should I?
You can do it if you don't mind. I'd be happy to, but go ahead.
Okay. So let me find my list here. Karen? Yay or nay? Yes. Okay. Andy?
Yes.
All righty. Paul?
Yes.
All righty. Randall?
Yes.
Okay. Stephen?
Yes.
All right. Barbara?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
All right. Tom?
Yes.
All right. Deborah?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. Okay, so the consent calendar has been accepted and passed. Okay, now we're down to the action items by motion. Anne or Suzanne, do you want to give us some input in and explain what is going on? And then we will read the side letter, the comment that was sent over to us, and we'll have public comment after you explain what's going on here.
Yes, Vicki was going to put it up on the screen for you. Unless not putting it on their screen, it doesn't matter. So essentially, the original shelter in place was only to go through April 7th. And so obviously the day before we came to the commission meeting on the 20th, Governor Newsom issued a stay-at-home order for called N3320, which extended the order to at least May 3rd. So the library and SEIU continued its meet and confer obligations in good faith, and basically reached a First Amendment to the shelter, or to the side letter, and also took into account some of the commissioner comments, and basically are coming to the commission to codify essentially the amendments to the shelter, to the side letter, and essentially would like to extend the disaster pay for an additional amount of time, and also with that in mind, to freeze the vacation accrual for those staff who are not continuing to be essential staff that are working, And also some of the other key points are to allow some of those staff who had vacation requests in the queue to cancel those vacation requests if they did so in a timely manner, which is outlined in this amendment. Obviously, staff who are on a leave not related to the COVID-19 would not be able to. This wouldn't apply to those staff. Anything that was not outlined in this amendment would not be changed. Muted. Those are the key points. And did I leave anything else? Yeah. And then also we wanted to be able to add some essential staff to the Amendment A without going to meet and confer. And so we've actually sent a list off to the union of several additional staff that we're proposing to come back to work as we've discussed.
Everyone is unmuted, but if you're going to speak, please do it one at a time.
Okay. Any comments or thoughts? Oh, I know we have to have the side letter read. I mean, the comment from the SEIU people, from Nick Alva. Okay, I'm going to read that. Dear Library Commissioners, SEIU 1020-1, along with the library, its employees, and every other person across the globe, face a challenge unseen in our lifetime. During this trying moment, the library and SEIU 1021 are diligently working together to ensure that once we are past this emergency, the library will again be in a position to provide the vital cutting-edge services that the citizens of Sonoma County have come to expect. To this end, we have been working with the library administration in a true partnership with the goal of keeping the library's talented staff intact in a safe environment. The side letter agreement and its amendment gives the commission the flexibility to call upon this partnership if circumstances change. We have fashioned this agreement on facts we know today, and we know COVID-19 is severely impacting our personal and work lives. In this moment of uncertainty, this side letter and its amendment ensures the essential staff will continue to provide essential services in operation and offers the flexibility for library to resume excellent services in the future. Together, we will work through a tangle of legislation that may or may not provide assistance to both individuals and the library. To facilitate the process, the union is requesting that during the April 6th commission discussion on side letter with amendment, that we were able to fully participate in the discussion, not to renegotiate the agreement as written, but to be available for open dialogue if the discussion necessitates our input, and in order to answer any questions regarding possible scenarios or potential outcomes in any process involving labor and the MOU. For the union, thank you. Nick Alva, Nancy oh gosh, I never can say her name, Cimino, and Bandy Tompkins, Steve Fessler. Okay, so SEIU members, if you're on the line, do you have any comments you want to add?
Hello, this is Nick. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
So just following up on some of the earlier comments and stuff, yes, we definitely hold by the letter. Things are changing constantly. As union representatives, it's important. It's our function and our role to make sure that the MOU is met. So we're working on that with the approach of following the guidelines set in place by governmental agencies that can affect the library's ability to serve the public. We're very aware and very much open to the commission suggestions and motions. We're also following what the administration is saying. And again, we just need to assure that the MOU is met. So the union is very much in favor of getting up public service as much as possible, as quickly as possible. We just need to make sure that it's appropriate to the MOU and any outside potential legal issues that might arise with, such things as people's personal use of computers and phone lines and such. So we're there. I really appreciated the advocacy aspect that was brought up earlier. There might be a lot of options that way, and SEIU, and we're trying to be very involved with that as well in support of the library. Thank you.
Sorry, that was Nick speaking.
Okay, are there any others that want to make a comment? Thank you,
Are
Nick.
you interested in? Okay.
Go ahead. What were you going to say? Okay. So, we are making an amendment to the site, to the letter that was originally that we okayed last month. Do I hear a motion?
Comments?
Oh.
Yes, I
Commission?
I move the approval of the side letter agreement, leave related to library closure due to COVID-19, and the First Amendment to the agreement, and authorize the library to take action consistent with such as to both representative and non-represented library employees.
Okay.
Commissioner Mackenzie had a comment.
Okay, I was going to get it motioned in second, and then we were going to do the comments.
Okay, I'll
This
second.
is Thomas Hauser. I second the motion.
Okay. Okay, so Barbara Mackenzie had a comment to make now?
Yes, the first side letter had an end date, obviously, which is tomorrow. This side letter has no end date. Am I correct? As long as disaster in place is in effect as designated by the county. Can you hear me, first of all?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, this is Suzanne. Thank you, Commissioner Mackenzie. So the issue is that should substantive changes come to the table, then we will, the union will continue meeting, and we will continue meeting just in regards to changes with regards to implementing service and with the best interest of the library. So we will be meeting, and with regards to just updating you, providing updates in the management report. So we will be meeting, but yes, there's no end date, but with regards to should a new order be put in place by the county or the state, that will change the terms of the side letter, and there could be a second amendment to this side letter to that effect, yes.
So you're saying anytime there's a change to the shelter in place date, that will trigger a rediscussion of the side letter?
Yes, but incrementally, we will also be meeting with the union, and subsequent reports will be provided within the management reports as well.
Well, I get just my concern. Can you hear me? Really echoey.
Yes, we can hear you despite the echo.
Okay. So the latest report from the county is the apex of this disease in our county is not supposed to be for at least 2 months. I'm getting really loud feedback.
Could everybody mute themselves again, except for Commissioner Mackenzie?
Yeah, I can still hear some voices, but anyway. Okay, much better. So anyway, so back to the county's latest report is the apex of the disease isn't supposed to hit for 65 days from last Thursday. So we're clearly at least 2 more months out with this, at least probably 3 and potentially much, much longer. So I'm just a little bit, I don't know how I feel about not having an end date to this. In the sense that we have a new budget year starting July 1 and so forth. I just like maybe a little more higher comfort level about these continuing discussions, our role in them, our feedback to them, and so forth. Thank you.
Can I say something? So
who was
the end date.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So the end date is in part to avoid what happened last time where there was a fixed date and then a major order came through that changed everything. When this all event first started, there were emergency meetings. At any point, the union's going to be available to talk and to negotiate and to try to assuage the concerns. Also, with this in place, it makes it easier to possibly easier to focus on bringing staff on board over an incremental period of time as appropriate, the following administration's plans and directives and such. So we try not to trap ourselves in anything that might cause an issue or a rush, and you have the option to review just at your regular next scheduled meetings and regular scheduled meetings thereafter, review and present. So yeah, we totally get your concern, and we were really trying to work very carefully with administration on the language on that. It was as a means to be able to be a little more fluid, but with a total understanding about what needs to be negotiated down the road.
Stephen?
Thank you.
Yes, and I second Commissioner Mackenzie's concerns. And so am I understanding that every month at every Library Commission meeting, we're going to have this up for another discussion to figure out how many of our staff can be further progressed from where they can't do any library work at all to where they're able to assist in some way towards their full job performance. Is that my understanding? Is my understanding correct?
No, not necessarily, because already behind, like the first appendix to this agreement, we listed several staff, but already behind the scenes, we've already taken a letter, not a letter, but an email to the union saying we need X, Y, and Z staff to come back to work because we are implementing additional services. And that's what that's what the amendment says, that we can go back to the union without having formal meet and confers, because we want to implement services incrementally. So we can be negotiating this behind the scenes. That's why we're going to be providing you updates in our monthly meetings. But for example, if tomorrow the governor or the county said we are lifting the shelter-in-place order, tomorrow the library wouldn't be ready to open because we're going to have a completely potentially different service model. We won't have everybody sitting side by side, most likely on computers. We will probably have every other computer, or the model is going to be a little bit different. I don't think as a county system we're going to be going back to exactly the same service right away. There's going to be PPE that we need. I just think it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to need some lead time. So to say that not certain staff will still be receiving disaster pay until we can get those personal safe distancing standards in place, we just want to be able to have a little bit of flexibility to implement that model. Does that make sense?
I can appreciate that, but I'm not prepared to vote in favor of this for an open-ended type of situation. I'm going to vote against, but thank you.
Okay.
If I can comment, one of them is that with a date, we would, when that date gets close, then that actually somewhat can potentially divert the process. So like what Suzanne was saying is that the labor reps today got the letter of the request for extension of essential employees coming in. We just got that today. And we also are very much aware of other aspects of employees who have come to us and asked us to advocate for the more involvement on their end to be able to serve the public. So we're hearing a lot. It's just an incremental step by step. And what happens too is we're trying to also take into consideration payroll, time frames for payroll, frames for vacation accruals or cancellations and such. It's something that we have never come across, and we're trying to work on it, help you guys out, help the library out, help the public out, doing it in an incremental way. And this seemed the best route to go. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Dave. Am I on? Do I have the floor or not?
Yes, you have the
You
floor.
do. Go ahead. Speak loud.
Okay. Yes. I will be voting for the agreement as is. I think we've had excellent working relationships, between the staff and the union, and I don't want to upset any apple carts.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment? Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm just going to turn this down now.
Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Barbara and Andy.
Barbara, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, go
Oh.
ahead, Barbara.
That's frustrating. Okay. Anyway, I thank everybody who is just doing their best in this completely insane situation. And I know everybody's working hard, frustrated. You know, we're all coping as best we can. I think when I was talking about the end date, some of my concerns obviously are financial because of we haven't had a finance committee meeting, haven't had our budget workshop. We don't have those scheduled yet. We have a new budget year coming in July 1. And it is not with any kind of a sense at all of, not being in full appreciation of the staff, everybody. It's just the commission's work is still to be done here. And we are going to be looking at probably some financial considerations, budget-wise. For sure, the sales tax, possibly the property tax, just from what I'm reading in the paper and what the county is looking at and so forth. So I guess what would make me feel a little bit better, and I've kind of heard some hints about this, the shelter in place folks who are not able to work based on their instructions to not work, could you give me a little more detail about possibly the incremental stuff, like if somebody has PPA, what they'd be able to do? Are we really talking about being able at some point to open the branches? I'm looking at this as pretty long term before we can open, but I'd like to maybe hear, to be enlightened a little bit more, because I'm hearing PPE and I'm wondering where that might fit in, and just maybe, because we're kind of out here, 1 month at a time, and we're not hearing maybe the latest what libraries are thinking about when they're thinking about opening again.
We are not looking at opening branches anytime soon. What we're talking about with bringing on more essential staff is how can we expand our services and our collections digitally? How can we do these things with people working from their homes? And so we're limited in how many people we can bring on in that regard because we don't have a whole lot of equipment to give them. So for example, if someone's going to be making collections for new collections, they've got to have a laptop, they've got to have connection. We will supply that. We certainly don't want people using their personal equipment for work-related needs. But we're limited in how much equipment we have ready to distribute. In terms of people working within the facilities, we have to have the PPE for those folks. And right now we don't have very much. So that's a concern. We're looking at bringing in people who can do targeted activities to further the services of the library within the constraints that we have here, if that helps with your question.
Like what would be a targeted activity that you'd need PPE for? We're not talking about, greeting the public or anything like that, but like possibly working within headquarters, still wearing PPE. I mean,
if somebody's going to be within one of the locations that has not yet been deep cleaned or handling materials, they would need to be wearing the personal protective equipment. And we have a very limited supply right now.
Anything else? Because I would like to make a comment.
I would like to say something.
Okay, go ahead, Andy.
I guess I'm going to ask the same question that I asked earlier in relation to our services. Currently, we have a shelter-in-place order through the beginning of May. I'm concerned, and I imagine many others on this call are concerned, that this is not going to end in May or anytime soon. So my question is, hypothetically, if we knew that we were going to be continuing to shelter in place for several months, not just for the next 4 weeks, what would library management and the union have done differently in terms of this agreement? Because it feels to me like it has a very short-term focus. And I have a couple of concerns. I'll just put them out on the table. One is financial. The other is we're not really doing, I don't think, everything we could to enable library employees to work productively, and yet we're still trying to keep them whole financially. And if this is extended for many months, we're going to be in a situation where we're going to face some serious financial challenges. I don't feel like this is really a partnership effort. I feel like we are doing everything we can to keep the employees whole, and that's great. What's the partnership here? What are we getting back? If it continues over a period of months, and I'll take my answer on the line. Thanks.
So, if I may, we are definitely looking at a long-term plan, long-term goal. We're looking at all the aspects of it. I'll say right off the bat that there's probably not a single Sonoma County Library employee who's not itching to do something to help the public to go back to work, to be able to come back to work. We've had on our end labor working a lot on our own and in conjunction with administration, trying to figure out things, process. Again, we've heard from staff saying we're ready to come back. It's just one thing that's happened, one thing to consider is that this is all so very new, so unexpected, so unprecedented that we're trying to figure it out as we go along. The goal is to provide public service. Everything you all said earlier about internet access, not available to many people, materials handling, can we set up a curbside type of service? All of those things are options. But one thing we really need to look at is what is in place from the federal government, from the CDC, from the government, and from the county. So employees are ready to go back. They'll go back when everything opens back up. It's anticipated that we'll probably have to have a week or so to handle all the returns and to get everything reorganized before opening to the public. That's not a set plan, but we have already been looking about measures about going back. It's really important to keep the staff whole because the options would be to furlough or to lay people off, which would mean that they would go on the unemployment rolls. One thing, though, coming from the federal government, and Jared Huffman just sent this out today, we don't have a clear answer on this, what the guidelines are for it, but the federal government does have in place options for businesses who keep their payrolls whole and intact a loan. And if they do it 100%, then the loan is actually forgiven. If it's not, then some of it has to be paid back. SEIU is looking into what that means. We're asking what that means. So it might behoove the library in that regard, just in that one little aspect, to follow that path. There was one other, I forgot what the other point was. But yeah, we're totally aware. We're totally in line with that. There are options for the commission to review, and with the side letter amendment. When things come up, we're here. We're available to talk. We want to move things quickly as forward as possible. We just want to make sure that it's done appropriately within the MOU. We don't know. Maybe in 3 weeks from now, they might say, hey, actually, the transmitting of virus on particular materials is actually something really easy to handle. All you got to do is this. If the library feels that's appropriate, if the government, local officials say, yeah, open up increasing services. I mean, everywhere, every aspect in our society is wanting to go back to providing what can be provided. We just have to make sure that it's done correctly. If you lay staff off, if you furlough staff, they would go on an unemployment roll. You know, an answer perhaps for taxpayers is that if that were the case, it would still be taxpayer funded. So we're looking at all of those options. And again, staff is more than willing, ready to come back at any level. We just have to do it incrementally.
So commissioners, you know, long-term, obviously, should this go into a long-term effect? One of the things that are different from our library system is that because we're a JPA, we're not members of the county, we're not, you know, disaster workers like many other library systems are. We're our own separate agency. So that makes us a little bit different, that we're not, you know, required to work as volunteers or emergency workers or anything like that. You know, other options, yes, down the line is that we could have the staff, if we're not able to pay them outright long-term, they could be required to use their accruals like other library systems are doing. A lot of, we just did participate in a survey. Other library systems are still paying, some of them are still providing their workers with full pay at this time. You know, long-term, we do not know how that will be in the long run. But yes, ultimately, you know, you could direct us to have staff, you know, use their accruals. Like Nick was saying, that the Families First Coronavirus Response Act could provide some leave, but we're not entitled to do that since we're still making our staff whole this time.
Commissioner Snyder has a question.
Commissioner. Thank you.
Barbara?
Oh, yeah, hi. I believe that the reference to the CARES Act and the forgiving businesses for taking out loans, that I don't think that would apply to us as a government agency. But anyway, just that's one comment I want to make. Is anybody really looking into that? Because I don't think
the family
libraries are certainly looking into it, and we're not the only JPA there. So.
But the Families First Corona Response Act does apply to us, and I have been working with council, but it doesn't apply to us right now because we're still compensating our staff fully. So they're not being displaced at all because they're getting their full salary. So at this time, it does not apply.
Thank you.
But as time unfolds, that answer will be definitely answered, and then once we have a firm answer and know how to proceed, well, then we can proceed in that way. One other aspect is that by and large, the employee budget is already in place through the end of this fiscal year. So you're not going to, you know, the budget's already in place, so it's not going to necessarily cause any issues in that regard at this time.
The budget is in place, but the revenue is not in place. The fact that it's budgeted doesn't mean anything if we can't collect the money. But I understand what you're saying. I'm not looking to be antagonistic here, but let's be realistic that we have to look at the revenue the library will actually collect, not just what was planned.
Okay. I want to say something. It seems to me that SEIU is trying to work very hard with the library and the library staff. And they're trying to figure out a way to get through this. And as somebody said in the course of this is totally unprecedented. We've never faced anything like this before. And yeah, that's true. I think that by extending this and not necessarily having a date on it, we are showing that we trust our library administrators. We trust the people who are doing the operations for this. And that is what we need to do right now. We don't know. They can act faster. They can act faster than we can. And that is what is important, that we give them the freedom and the ability to do what is necessary in a timely fashion. Now, I'm not saying that we just, you know, let them do anything. They have to stay within their, you know, parameters. And we can come back and revisit this. At least this is my understanding. We can come back and revisit this at any time that we choose. Now, we know that we're going to hit a problem with sales tax because, as Andy just said, that is monthly. Yes, we have our budget, but doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get it. And this is the not, you know, we're not sure we're going to get it now. We know, in fact, we're not going to be getting a portion of it, probably a fairly large portion of it. But I think we need to trust the people we have in place. And to me, that is one of the things that is most important right now. Keep our eyes open, have them report back every month, let us know where things stand, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we need to trust. So that's what I have to say about it.
So I've had my hand up for a while.
Oh,
This is
sorry, I
Karen.
didn't know that.
Yeah, quite a while.
Sorry.
And I just, first I want to echo, first I want to say that the workforce is the library's greatest asset. And we greatly appreciate the value that the library workers bring to the library and the passion and dedication that they bring. That said, I echo Andy's concerns. I'm particularly concerned that, first of all, this is going to go on. Is that echo again?
Somebody needs to mute.
That this is not only going to go on much longer than we expected, but that it will go in waves. That there'll be the abatement of the coronavirus, and then, as with a number of viruses, it'll come back again in the fall. And I'm also concerned about, as several people have pointed out, the fact that we are hemorrhaging revenue in this county like nobody's business. And we want to have a library when this is all over. So that's, I personally don't fully understand why this is extended, why this isn't limited to the end of the extended shelter in place. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
This is Deborah.
Okay, Deborah.
I appreciate the union's remarks about the union representative's remarks about really wanting to work with the commission, and we certainly want to work with you as well. And I echo the comments about trusting the administration. Certainly, I think it would be helpful, since we're all flying blind here. Not that I want to add more work to the people who are already trying to keep the library open on a daily basis, but I think we're all nervous about the budget. We're all nervous about the finances, and so we would probably feel better if we had a couple of, if we saw, say, next time we saw, what would it be like if the budget is, what would it be like if the revenues were this? What would it look like if the revenues were this? What would it look like if the revenues were that? Just to sort of get a sense of how bad it really is. Because we're all flying blind here, but if we just have a little bit of, I don't know, predictability, maybe just a little bit of a roadmap, then I think that would make some of us feel a little better. And I appreciate the union rep saying that you're flexible about addressing changes as they go. I certainly was a little taken aback the last time when I noticed that the duration was, ad infinitum. But your explanation makes sense to me, that it gives us all a little more flexibility, as opposed to focusing on that one thing, that one element of the understanding. So, but if there's a way that we could get additional information between our commission meetings, and I trust the finance committee to look at things as well, certainly, but we want to be the best commissioners we can be, and we want to help direct the library as well as we can. So more information is better. Otherwise, we'll make it up, and that's a bad thing.
If I can state, I'm not the CFO or anything, but we did see some information, and also one group of employees currently is not working, and that's the extra help staff. So I could give you a number that I know, but it would not necessarily be accurate. But it was fairly significant, and that amount, which comes out, my understanding, comes out of Measure Y funds, is already, that's not going to be happening. So there's a significant savings over at least through April on the extra help staff covering vacancies, absences, and vacations.
I think this would mostly come from the budget department, really. So this is not something we all.
I just wanted to let.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree with you, and that's one thing that we are looking at, and that's one of the things I know immediately has already had an impact on lessening the amount of payroll budget is extra help staff not working, not being paid during this period of time. They're not also, because of the MOU and the nature of their work, they're not eligible to receive administrative leave or disaster pay. That was a hard one for us to take because they're valuable employees, but that was basically a language, and it did have I wouldn't say positive impact, but it did lessen the budget for payroll, at least during this phase.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know I had asked if Jody could bring to the meeting tonight at least some estimates or some idea of what we might be facing with in the way of loss of sales tax. I also realize that it's probably a little too soon to even begin to estimate, although we know it's going to be fairly drastic. But I'm hoping that at the finance meeting that they will have some of those figures for the finance committee to work with, that they can come back and next month we can have a discussion that's a little more serious around what our budget is going to look like. And hopefully we'll have a budget meeting even between now and then, but I don't know for sure if that's going to work out yet.
Excuse me, this is Jane. Jody is available online to speak to those issues if you're willing to hear her.
Good. Absolutely. Jody, please.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Jody.
Hello.
So in a regular payroll cycle, so every 2 weeks, with the extra help, we spend $615,000. Without the extra help, we've just had one payroll, and I don't think all of it was disaster pay, but that payroll missing the extra help was $592,000.
Do you have any idea, and I know this is really early to ask this, do you have any idea what the impact or the percentage drop or whatever you want to call it is going to be on the sales tax?
I can only guess. We have already gotten our payments for March, and it is lower, but not as low as it was in October after the fire power shutoff. It was we've gotten around 849,000 instead of a little over $1 million. I expect next month to drop fairly drastically, and it may take us a bit to recover as businesses, decide whether they're reopening and that kind of thing. But I think, yeah.
Okay, so could you think about some of those things before the finance committee meeting, which will be the third Monday of the month?
Sure.
So that they have something that they can begin to work with and possibly bring back to the commission our next meeting, or if we can get a budget meeting in here, I don't know. Like I say, still to be arranged. Yeah, so they have something to work with, some idea.
Sure.
Okay, because we may have to make adjustments in this current budget. Definitely, we're going to have to make adjustments in the next budget that we're putting together for 2021. So
yeah,
Reece, Barbara,
yes.
Barbara, then Andy.
Okay, Barbara.
2, 3.
Is
Say
Jody-
again, Barbara.
I'm not
Jody's
muted.
still on.
Oh, okay. Jody, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks, Jody. So did you read the article in the paper today about the county's estimates and the drops in both sales tax and property tax, the estimates? I know that somebody's making a lot of noise on their thing. I know you have experience, fortunately for us, with both the county and with the city of Santa Rosa, so you're familiar with local governments. They're all doing a lot of communicating, all the local governments, and talking about the impacts. We're kind of out here on our own as this separate agency under a JPA, and so it's harder for us to, I think, be in the loop. And so I'm wondering particularly about the connections that you would have with the county and with the city of Santa Rosa on what you're hearing. But there were some fairly specific, well, I wouldn't say it's specific numbers, but they're starting to estimate at the county level, and wondering if you have had any time to look into that in terms of estimates. Again, our difficulty is we're month to month. You know, it's a long time between these meetings, and so we're all kind of not as in the loop as we want to be.
Yes, I still know people at both the county and the city. I did see the article that you referenced. My guess is that they're doing it on a percentage basis. It's still going to be a fairly small percentage of their overall budget. But a similar scenario for us would hurt. Even looking at just switching to the budget for next year briefly, even if we're looking at a flat rate budget going forward, we're still going to have to cut money that people have requested for their divisions.
Okay, Andy?
Jody, 2 questions, please. First, with regard to the payroll figures, I believe you said, and I wanted to confirm, that prior to this most recent payroll period, when we were paying the full staff, including extra help, the salaries for a payroll period were $615,000. And then when extra help was excluded, it was $592,000. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So that's a
amount that,
I'm sorry, it's a difference of $23,000, and is that 2 times per month?
that is correct. The first payroll, we saved actually $36,000 from not paying extra help. The reason that the difference is not that big is because that people who are working are earning a 15% premium, and that accounts for about $8,000.
Okay. And then second, you mentioned that we did receive sales tax payment for March, but what I think you meant to say was that we received a sales tax payment in March based on sales tax in January. Is that correct?
No, this would not be from the property tax, which comes twice a year. The sales tax is what we received for March. That was $849,000, somewhere around there.
I don't think that's correct. We don't receive sales tax just a few days afterwards. The sales tax we just got, Randall, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but wouldn't that be based on sales taxes that were collected 2 months prior?
There is a lag in the sales tax of a month or more. I don't remember the exact number.
Yeah, I do have a chart to show you at the Finance Committee where you can see that it's not unusual for the amounts of the sales tax to fluctuate from month to month. December, they're always really high, and then we usually get a dip around when taxes are due. So I have a chart that delineates the last 3 years that will show you what I mean.
Right, but all I'm saying is that we won't be seeing directly the impact of reduced sales taxes until later in April, when we get the sales tax revenue from February, and even more so in May when we get the sales tax revenue from March.
Yes, I'm sorry. I assumed it was from the month before, not that there was a lag.
Yeah, no, okay, thank you.
Barbara?
We have some.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring us back for a moment to the property tax as well. I mean, our two sources of income being property tax and sales tax. We know the sales tax is plunging. The property tax, there's a certain amount of debate going on. Property tax are still due, but they may not have penalties. The penalties may not be enforced. And so that may also create a delay in payment on property tax as well. So, you know, we're going to get hit potentially on both sides.
Excuse me, this is Vicki. We have representatives from the SEIU who would like to speak again. Nobody has intentionally muted you. We just we're trying to get through the commissioner's discussion.
This is Thomas Hauser. May I speak now?
Yes, Tom.
Okay. I want to get to what I think we're really being asked to approve. And what I'm looking at is the Amendment 1 to the March 14, 2020 leave related to library closures and so forth. And the first numbered paragraph there says, any substantive changes to Executive Order N-33-20 or other order issued by a governing authority that impacts the Sonoma County Library will trigger a meet and confer by the parties, period. And that is I think what we're talking about here is we're approving this subject to the right to meet and confer if there's any change in the government orders that we're facing. So it goes on to say that, you know, this will be reviewed before every library commission meeting. So the question we have here that's been expressed is some people have said, well, what if this goes on for 6 months? I think, and I'm not sure, that that says if there's an the executive order that extends it beyond May 3rd or whatever the current order is, that would be a thing that we would have to meet and confer about at that time. Does anybody have an insight into that?
Go ahead, Suzanne. I mean, the intent is that we are going to be meeting and conferring about the impacts of this regularly, that it's not going to just be oh God, there's that word, perpetuity. Yes, so, you know, I mean, we recognize that it's our obligation as a library system to be, you know, fiscally conservative with the money, and it's your obligation as a commissioner to give us that direction to, you know, to honor that obligation to be fiscally conservative with the public's money. So, you know, so that was the intent of this. This whole
okay, well, I don't want to talk about the intent. I want to talk about the language. And so my question is, does that mean that if something comes up, the library commission can say, no, we're not going on forever? If the executive order extends it for another 6 months?
Yes, that was my understanding of this language, yes.
I'd ask, is that what the union thinks about it? Because I think we have a union rep who pops in and out. And if you'd please state your name so we know who you are.
Well, we're trying to get the other reps on too. But my name is Nick Alva. I'm a circulation supervisor in the Rohnert Park branch. I'm on the LMC board. So so you can review at any time and ask the administration to direct them to come to the table. So what would the language this time around was preliminarily driven by a variety of governmental agencies starting to put dates into place. The change can, who has the ultimate authority? Right now it's the governor, so we're responding to the governor's date. If the dates continue and nothing has changed, everything as far as the library is concerned, the state remains status quo, the governor's order or the county's order to initiate another change of date does not necessitate a meet and confer. If they put on some other type of restrictions or limitations, or if they lift the shelter in place, then we would be back to work. But yes, the commission can review at any time and ask the admission to direct them to come to the table.
Well, I don't
Nick,
think
this
that's
is
what you
Steve.
said. This is Mr. Hauser again. I'd like to say to the person who just spoke to me, you said, yes, the library can, but you said if there is not a change except if there's a change in the date, but not in any of the provisions of the order, the executive order, then we don't have a meet and confer.
There's two different things going on.
My name is Steve Fessel.
Okay.
Can anyone even hear me? Excuse me. My name is Steve Fessel. I'm a union rep for SEIU. And I've been listening to this. I was muted for quite a while there accidentally. First, I wanted to really say I appreciate all your comments. And I really appreciate how hard that Ann and Suzanne and the other library staff worked with us on fashioning this agreement. Because the fact is, none of us know what's going to happen. None of us know how long this is going to last. What we do know, the longer it lasts, the more pain that we're all going to feel. And that includes the employees and everyone else involved in this conversation. We opened an agreement up that allows flexibility to allow us to make adjustments as it moves on. I'm really hoping by May 3rd, we're starting to set the library back up. I think that's critical for the community, it's critical for the employees, and critical for the financial stability of everyone involved. So this is what we've tried to do. Suzanne and Ann can come up to us at any time and say, we need to sit down because the circumstances have changed. And by the way, the circumstances change every day, every single day. To place a dead-end date on an agreement would be foolish in the sense that we don't know what that dead-end date's going to be. However, as far as being flexible and working together, we've been in negotiations probably every week since this thing has happened. And it seems like that's been for months, but it's only been a couple of weeks. So that's quite amazing. But we really did try to fashion an honest-to-God agreement to really help provide safety for the employees, stability for the library, and we're willing to revisit this agreement whenever we need to revisit this agreement, whenever there's changes. And believe me, there will be changes. This is not something that's going to go on to indefinitely, because there will be other actions that have to be taken in the future. And by the way, there's going to be a fourth wave of financial support given out. I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't say how that's going to be. But we worked in good faith with the library. They worked in really good faith with us, and it was in partnership, by the way. We didn't try to take positions. Instead, we tried to figure out what's best for the employees in the library system here in Sonoma County. So, with that said, I've kept my mouth shut for quite a while, and I'll shut it again. But thank you very much, and I do really respect your opinions. And we do respect wanting to keep the library operational and the staff intact. So when you do open back up, you have that same skill level that you had when this terrible pandemic was hit our country. And by the way, I don't consider myself a union rep right now. I consider myself an American.
This is Thomas Hauser again. I still haven't gotten a clear answer to the question that I feel comfortable that I've gotten an answer. And the question is, if there is an extension of the date, is that a change that would trigger a meet and confer?
Yes, I believe it would. I think we would.
Yeah.
Who is saying that? Who is saying that? Steve. Okay, how about Nick?
Okay, I'll tell you. Steve Fessler.
Okay, Nick, what is your answer to that question?
Yes, totally.
Okay, then I move that we approve, just a second, everybody. I got to read the motion. I want to make a motion here. Approve the SCPL
Tom,
dash S, yeah,
David already made the motion and Barbara seconded it.
Second.
okay, then we don't have to have a motion in second. I think it's time to vote on this.
Okay,
Let's call the
so,
question.
pardon?
They're voting.
Okay, so we're gonna vote? Okay. So we're ready to vote.
Yes.
You ready to go? God, I can't see everybody. I have to get over here. Okay, there's Karen. Karen, are you in favor of this motion or against it?
Said yes.
She said yes? Okay. Okay, Andy, what about you?
Abstain. I'm sorry. No, that was not my vote. My vote is abstain.
Abstain?
Oh, okay. No, she said yes. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Okay, Andy? In favor or against? Or abstain? You're what?
Somebody needs to mute.
Andy?
Abstain.
Okay, so you're abstaining too. Paul?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Randall?
Yes.
Yes. Stephen? Stephen, is it?
He's muted.
Okay.
Wait a second, wait a second.
Okay, you're unmuted. No, now you're muted again.
Somebody's muting him.
Okay, hold on.
They are voting.
Okay, no, I vote opposed.
Another 10 minutes.
Okay, so you're opposed.
Okay.
Okay, Barbara?
Oh.
Or against or abstain?
What my library pay or whatever.
Someone needs to mute who's not a commissioner. Getting a lot of noise here. I'm very uncomfortable without a mute. So I'm going to abstain.
Okay, David Cahill.
Yes.
Hey, Tom Hauser.
Yes.
Deborah Doyle.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses, 2 abstains, and no, 3 abstains and 1 opposed. That makes 10. Okay. So the motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank everybody for your comments, etc.
If you're not a commissioner, please mute.
Okay, we have no action items by resolutions, no discussion, no closed session, so we don't have to reconvene. Agenda items for future commission meetings.
This is Thomas Hauser, approval of the bylaws, the draft bylaws.
All righty. Any other ideas?
Well, I think we need, this is Paul Heavenridge, and I think we need to have a discussion of scenarios because of the budget, you know, the possibility of not getting much revenue in.
All righty.
We need to have a discussion on that.
All righty. Anybody else?
And we need to talk about National Library Legislative Day.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other ideas?
I'm still hearing non-commissioners who have not muted their phones.
Okay.
Coordinate, Colleen.
Okay. So no more ideas for agenda. If you have some, I realize this has been a very experimental meeting. So if you have any ideas that you think of in the next couple of days, let me know or let Jane know. And so our next meeting date officially is May 4th, 6 p.m. Probably virtually again, would be my guess. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting. And thank you all very much for your patience with this. It's been an interesting experience for my high technology. Anyway.
It
take care.
basically
Take care,
worked.
everybody.
It basically
Yes, it
worked.
did.
Thanks,
Yay.
Krista.
Okay, bye.
Stay safe, everybody.
Bye-bye.